Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention, the show for high-achieving career women who refuse to settle for mediocrity and aren't afraid to take bold action. This is a place where you can authentically show up, where every dream and goal can be validated and achieved. Hi, I'm your host, Karen Freeland, a certified life reinvention coach, speaker, and award-winning author. I'm here to give you the tips, tools, and strategies to help you shift your mindset, build your confidence, and take meaningful actions so you can rock your reinvention. Ready to go from stuck to thriving? Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're listening to this episode. I am so glad you have joined me for today's topic: 5 tips for dealing with change. This is one of those stumbling blocks that I see women constantly coming up against, and it becomes a fork in the road for many of them. They either start to go through changes and they allow the inner critic and the roadblocks and the fear to get in the way and they don't follow through, or they use it as a learning process, as a part of the journey, and they actually get excited about change. So today I want to give you 5 specific tips that I have found are helpful when you're considering change. 5 tips that are going to help you specifically with your mindset about change. Now, before we get into those tips, I want to make sure that you are familiar with what we call the change cycle. And what that is really 7 phases that we experience when we're going through a change. So this comes directly from my book, Grab Life by the Dream. So if you haven't gotten yourself a copy yet, I'm going to invite you to do that again, because I know that this is going to change your life and be so impactful for you. But chapter 3 specifically looks at how we commit to change. And what I have seen in my practice and from the women that I've worked with is that you typically start in this awareness phase. You become aware that there is a problem in your life that is necessitating some change. So let's take the example of a woman who wants to leave her job and, leave corporate and do something different. At first, she understands, she has this awareness that she's not really happy in her current situation. She's not being valued maybe in her job, or she just realizes she's got a passion for something else. After the awareness phase, we go into consideration. We start to get a little more serious about the change. And we're like, okay, what are the potential solutions? What could we investigate as options for a change? Maybe we start a side hustle that will just bring us some more joy. And, if you haven't listened to my episode on how to know if you're ready to start a side hustle, you're definitely going to want to check that out. But maybe you start to look at businesses that you could open, or following your passion and researching what it would be like to bring that to fruition. And then after the consideration phase, you jump into commitment. You finally have enough information to feel relatively comfortable with making that change. You're getting comfortable with it. You're taking some steps in the right direction. So maybe you open your LLC. Maybe you decide to write that outline for that book you've been wanting to write, or you purchase the domain for your website. Then we hit the excitement phase. We're like, oh my goodness, this is really happening. I'm really doing this. This is so exciting. We're proud of ourselves. We're starting to relish in these little accomplishments, and it feels really fun. And then comes, dun, 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 the fear. We start to romanticize our old way of life. Maybe you hit a roadblock or a challenge and you think, oh my gosh, what was I thinking starting my own business? I should have just stayed in corporate. It was so much easier then. It really wasn't that bad. Yeah, right. Just kidding. But you really are like trying to make this old thing that you left for a reason seem more glamorous than it ever was. And then we get into the awareness phase again. So see, it's like a cycle, right? We're going almost in like a circle. We're acutely aware again of how painful the situation is. maybe you decide to go back to your old job, or maybe you never make the full move in the first place, but you've been doing this stuff on the side, you give it up for a while, go back to, focusing solely on your job, and you're like, I remember now why I was so restless and why I didn't want to do this anymore. And then we become, in the seventh phase, even more committed, right? We have this recommitment where we're like, no way. That's right. I decided to leave my job for a reason. I have a passion for this thing I'm doing. I'm going to be even more committed and excited about it. And so that's a fairly straightforward example of how someone might go through those 7 different phases when they're considering change. Why is this important? Because change can feel very difficult or jarring. And whether we've initiated this change or the change was thrust upon us, right? Some of you are not electing the changes that you're experiencing right now. Some of you have had a change that is just thrust upon you. Right? You get served divorce papers all of a sudden from your spouse, and you're like, what? I didn't even know you were unhappy in the marriage. What is going on? Or you lose your job and you're like, oh my gosh, how could they have let me go? But whenever we're dealing with change, if we know the different phases that you're going to go through, you can catch yourself and you could say, oh, I'm romanticizing this old job that I was in because I'm in my fear phase. I'm romanticizing this relationship that wasn't even healthy or good for me in the first place because I'm in the fear phase, right? So when we can recognize that, we can better equip ourselves to deal with change. Okay, so now let's jump in. If we are dealing with a change, what are the 5 ways that we can make sure we have a mindset that embraces this change? Well, the first thing I'd like to invite you to do is recognize that this change is necessary for growth. Yeah, think about it. The alternate to growth is being stagnant, right? So if we're not growing, if we are not changing, what are we really doing? We're kind of like dying, right? We're just existing in this status quo. How boring is that? And I know all the time we hear people say, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, there's nothing comfortable about this, okay? So let me be clear. This isn't going to be comfortable. But what I want you to understand is that this is only temporary. Eventually, this change you're going through that feels so foreign is going to be your new normal. Isn't that amazing? I mean, think about the first day on your first job ever. Like, think back to when you were a teenager or whenever you started working and you had that first job. I was a bagger at the grocery store. And I remember there were times it was really hard. I'm like, I don't know how to bag properly. I'm over bagging. There were like too many cans in the one bag, and this poor little grandma could barely lift it. And, my boss is yelling at me because I packed it too heavy for her. And I'm like, I didn't know. And it was really hard. But then eventually that became my new normal. I was so good at packing groceries that even to this day, I don't really like other people to pack my groceries. I want to do it myself because I know how I like it done. I'm good at it. Well, then I moved up to cashier. And oh my gosh, I could not remember the code for beets was 427. I don't really remember what it was, but like I could not remember the numbers. And I would hate when someone would buy some exotic fruit that I didn't know the numbers for. It was super uncomfortable. But eventually, 6 to 8 months in, I was like the veggie queen, and I'm like, bring it on. Show me the most exotic fruit you can find. I'll know the number, right? And that's just like a simple example. I know the challenges you are going through could be really, really big, but this is all going to be easy street eventually. And you're going to be ready for the next phase of growth and the next change. So remember that it's necessary for your growth. And that's a good thing. Second thing to remember about change is avoiding the temptation of romanticizing your past situation. And we just talked about how that is normal, right? You're going to go through the fear phase. You're going to doubt yourself and feel like you simply cannot do this. So I want you to pay extra special attention to that. And what you can remind yourself when you're going through this discomfort is that this is just your brain's way of trying to protect you. Your brain doesn't like to be discomforted any more than you do. So it's really important for you that you catch yourself when you start to do this, when you start to romanticize the past. Oh, I should have just stayed in that job. Oh, I should have just stayed in that relationship, whatever it is. I should have just not even bothered working out, or, oh, why did I bother changing my diet? This is so hard. And that is one of the reasons why having a coach during seasons of change is so, so valuable, because you can't always see and recognize that you're romanticizing, that you're in the fear phase. You think your fear is totally validated. But having a coach, I'm able to spot this in my clients before they even realize that they're doing it. And then when I explain this, they're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And they're able to come out of that and keep pushing forward with the change that they have decided and committed to. So catch yourself in that phase, and you can then divert your attention on what can you control, what is good about this, which leads me right into my point number 3, tip for having a mindset that embraces change, is look for the silver lining. How could this change actually benefit you? If you have the mindset that there's a silver lining, you're going to be able to make peace with the changes and do it even faster than if you didn't. Now, look, I want to be really caring and loving and understanding with whatever challenges you're facing, because I know this isn't easy, and I'm not pretending that it is. I don't want you to feel like your feelings aren't validated, right? When you're going through something tough, like losing a loved one, in the moment, no one says, oh, well, I'm sure there's a silver lining. No, you grieve that loss. You're sad. You wonder when days are going to get bright again. And then when you're ready, you were able to see how that event, that change, has also presented something positive or beautiful in your life. Maybe you had a heart attack, or maybe someone else in your family had a heart attack, and suddenly you realized, that's my bloodline. I need to take my health seriously. Maybe you lost someone and you decided to start a nonprofit to help others with a similar situation. I don't know if any of you have heard of this nonprofit. It's called Song for Charlie. I don't get anything for mentioning them. They don't even know. I know that they exist. But this is a young man, Charlie, who died from taking a pill that he thought was a Percocet or one of those back pain pills. And it ended up being laced with fentanyl, and it killed him within a matter of about 30 minutes. And his parents have decided to use this tragic event in their life to create an awareness campaign to educate other young adults and children about these fake pills, so that they will never lose their life from one, or that any other parents ever have to feel the pain that they felt. Now, if we could bring Charlie back tomorrow, would we do it? Sure we would. Sure we would. But we can't. And this death is now saving potentially hundreds of thousands of lives. What a beautiful silver lining. So look, if someone who can lose their own child can find a silver lining, I know whatever challenge you're going through, whatever change you're facing, you can find a silver lining too. The 4th mindset shift I want you to make is that sometimes baby steps are the best thing you can do. Go ahead and take those baby steps. I never advise my clients to make multiple changes at once, if you can avoid it, right? Sometimes we can't, right? Sometimes the world just handles a whole bunch of lemons at one time, right? And we've got a whole bunch of change that we have to deal with. But whenever possible, I want to invite you to take the baby steps. Change is hard enough. Like, let's not make this harder. Let's set ourselves up for success. And remember, you don't have to do it all overnight. Most people didn't see my transformation until it already happened. They had no idea what I was going through for 4 years leading up to my corporate exit and launching my first book. All of a sudden, to them, it looked like I became an overnight success. Here I was with a brand new book. I was winning awards. I left my job. I started a business. I had testimonials from customers. And people are like, what is going on? You just like blew up overnight. I'm like, no, I didn't. I was in the lab for 4 years, struggling, trying to figure out what my purpose was and determine what direction to go. Well, you didn't see that. You didn't see me at 3 a.m. in the morning when I was having panic attacks in the bathroom mirror, telling myself to get it together before my husband walked in and saw me losing my mind. Nobody saw that stuff. So don't feel like you have to do it all right now. And this is really hard because when you get in that excitement phase and you are pumped about a change, you are going to want to do it all. You're going to want to tackle every last little thing on your to-do list. You will stay up late to do it. You will do it on weekends. I mean, you will be fired up. And I also want to remind you, if you start to get overwhelmed, that's where you can go back to baby steps. Okay. Oh, this gets me so excited. You've totally got this. Whatever change you're facing, whatever change you're thinking about making right now, you've just totally got this. And it's so doable. And I want that for you. Okay, the last thing I want to share, tip number 5, to have a mindset that embraces change and is going to help you walk through change more gracefully, is to always remember and go back to your why. When in doubt, when things get really hard, and you know they will, if you don't know they will, I'm telling you they will, you're going to have those moments. When that happens to you, don't get discouraged. Don't say, oh, I should have just stayed doing whatever I was doing before. Go back to why you are making this change in the first place. Tap into your soul, into your heart, reminding yourself of those initial goals and emotions that you had, your passions, knowing that you were meant for something more, something better, something more fulfilling, and reminding yourself that you can't achieve that if you stay in the same place, if you rest in the status quo. Going back to your why can be so powerful. And when things just feel like it's too much, they feel overwhelming, that will be that little spark of inspiration that will keep you going. Okay, I hope that you will take this to heart. I hope that you will pick one of these tips and implement them for a change that you're going through or that you're thinking about making. Of course, I want you to adopt all of them, but that's a lot, right? Those are 5 things. And so if you can just pick one right now to really embrace and keep at the forefront, that is going to be tremendously beneficial for you. Now, for those of you that are STAR students and you want a little bit more of an advanced challenge, I want to invite you to get the Grab Life by the Dreams companion workbook. It's the official companion workbook and reflection journal. I'll make sure the link is in the show notes. But there is an exercise on pages 44 and 45 in chapter 3 of the companion workbook and reflection journal. And it's called the Change Diary. And this exercise is going to walk you through looking at key changes that you have made in your life and the benefits that you have experienced from that change. And this is such a powerful exercise for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, it just reminds you of how many changes you have overcome in your lifetime. You can go back as far as you want, grade school, high school, whatever, college. I mean, dig back into the archives and really look at all of the changes that you have made in your life. And then I love this because you're able to look at the benefits that came from that change. For example, when you took that role that you didn't think you could handle and you nailed it, or you learned some really key things about yourself, or learned some new skills that you were able to take into your next role, wow, you can then apply that to whatever change you're going through now, or the next change that you want to make. And remind yourself of all the benefits that are going to come of these changes. I hope you'll take me up on the offer to get yourself a copy of the companion workbook. There are just so many more questions and exercises and things for you to dig into that I know are going to be instrumental as you go through change in your life. But until then, you've got what we talked about today, and you can start implementing these 5 mindset shifts to help you embrace change. Until next week, stay fabulous. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. And if you want accountability and support, I've got your back. Join my private Facebook group, Successful Working Women Rocking Reinvention, today. You'll find a community of like-minded women waiting to support you, exclusive content, and helpful resources to ensure you succeed. Lastly, if you loved this episode, do me a favor and be sure to leave a review. Together, we can encourage more women to live their purpose. See you next time.